Right. Okay, because here, listen, Will Coons goes on and says, if we do see lower division teams develop relationships with MLS clubs in the future, that's what I hope. I would hope they would see out of it as part of the benefit, part of the gain, saying we have one of the better programs when it comes to producing talent. Again, that's fine. But what he's asking NASL to do, and I understand him asking the USL to do this because it's Division 3. It's a little bit lower, and, they're going to have more. They're going to have struggles. To me, the NASL wants to compete. In fact, David Downs says, ultimately, the NASL has a certain brand identity. And if we simply convert that to MLS Reserves, I'm not sure that really benefits our current owners. It doesn't benefit them, okay? Because NASL has, from their founding, they had a vision of not just staying in the second division of the United States, in soccer. I mean, they had a vision of, in a very USFL versus NFL way, or the way the AFL competed with the NFL. I mean, listen, everybody thought the AFL was the minor leagues of professional football, and they were in a lot of ways versus the old NFL. But they eventually were able to compete because people went out and watched those games. They were able to finance themselves. They were able to go out then, and the USL SFL did this at the beginning as well, and buy some of the biggest players in the game and bring them to their league. And suddenly, they had to be taken seriously. And, down the line, Brett, I guarantee you this is not going to go on forever. FIFA is going to tell the USSF, hey, guys, you got to get your hands around this. This cannot go on forever the way this model is set up. You have to have some form, even if it's some creepy, weird form of promotion and relegation like Mexico has, where you can finish last, 2 years in a row and still not get relegated because you have, a 3-year history of doing really well in the league. Listen, at some point that's going to happen, and it will happen. I cannot see FIFA doing this forever. And what the NASL says is, we don't need that kind of relationship with MLS because we're in this for the long haul. You see what I'm saying? If I'm David Downs, I mean, how are you going to convince me otherwise?
Well, I'm just going to start this argument off with saying that the Division 2 and Division 3 titles are just that. They're titles. A couple of years ago, USL and NASL teams were all playing in the same league, so there's not a difference in quality. So I don't think it has anything to do with saying, oh, yes, we're a Division 3 team. We need to do this. We need to do that. They are the same quality as Division 2.
But
they just opted for an easier setup, where they don't have to follow the USF requirements because Division 3 has no requirements in comparison to Division 2, where you have to have a majority owner that has $20 million net worth. You have to have a soccer-specific stadium within 5 years. This is stuff that doesn't even involve Division 3. So this is a way that USL looked at it like, hey, we're going to find stability, but not forcing these rules on them.
Oh, come on now. So, there is going to be eventually a quality difference between Division 2 and Division 3. I guarantee you.
What's the difference? There's no difference,
there's
really.
Not much difference now.
Because all teams from both divisions are struggling with attendance. They're struggling with everything. There's no difference between the two outside of the fact that there's restrictions to become a Division 2 team.
Now they're struggling.
Well, in 10 years, who knows? NASL may falter in 2 years.
NASL
may lose two or three teams that all of a sudden be negated, that they don't have the sanction from USSF.
It depends on but it's your point of view though, Brett. And listen, you're either NASL, you're in it for the long haul in the sense that you're reaching for the stars and you want to be competitive, or you can settle. And I'm just saying, there's no reason NASL, now being sanctioned as Division 2, which they are, for them to completely decide that they have to become MLS Reserve League. It makes sense for USL. USL should do that. I think they should do it because eventually down the line there is going to be a quality difference between the USL and the NASL. Right now, you're right, there isn't. It's been too short of time since the...
Break the difference down. What's the difference between NASL and USL as far as just how the team is run and the quality involved?
Well, there's not much difference now, but as we move forward and the requirements of NASL requires them to have a soccer-specific stadium, which makes watching the games much more pleasurable. They have to have a gazillionaire, well, not a gazillionaire, you know what, a millionaire owner, somebody who's really invested in their team. And granted, a lot of the teams in NASL don't even have owners yet, but they'll find owners. that's if you're David Downs, and I'm playing David Downs' role right now. I'm David Downs, and I'm saying, listen, we're going to find owners for those teams eventually because we're going to build these soccer-specific stadiums. The fans are going to start coming to these games. We're going to start being competitive, and with those millionaires and their investments, we're going to buy better players, and they're going to come over, and we're going to develop more of these, players that maybe eventually will end up in MLS. We hope not. We hope to be able to pay them and be competitive with MLS. Now, listen, is that a pipe dream? It could be. It might seem like one. But if I'm the NASL and I'm in this for the long haul, I'm not conceding second place quite yet. I want us to hang in there. If I'm the USL, I'm willing to beg and borrow because guess what? I'm the third division, and eventually that's going to show. I don't have soccer-specific stadiums. My teams are playing at high school stadiums. Okay? All right, so I'm just telling you, in the end, it's going to make a difference.
I'm just saying the difference between NASL and USL and our arguments is that whereas you're with the NASL as far as what they're saying they're hoping to accomplish, their dreams, they're expressing their dreams to be a competitive league.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. And, and I really do hope they become a competitive league. I don't think they're ever going to catch up to MLS unless MLS really just screws something up royal and they falter completely. USL is more of a realist. They accept the fact that MLS has this ginormous gap, and unless something really screwed up happens, they're going to continue that route. Mm-hmm. Now, it's possible in the future that, like you're saying, FIFA may say, hey, you need to have some form of promotion relegation. And in all honesty, maybe USL is looking at this as a true option of really stepping up because MLS may say, okay, we're going to have promotion relegation between us and USL. We're going to have some form of promotion relegation, and then NASL is just going to be left to the side. It's possible. It could happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, it could.
The only option there is that you're going to see teams defect from NASL and move over, and we're already seeing that to an extent. We saw it with Portland. I don't know if they're in NASL. In all honesty, they could have been USL. But NASL, USL top teams, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, Montreal, we've all seen them move over to MLS.
Yeah.
And it's possible that we're going to see more and more of this, unless NASL really emboldens to and finds the smaller markets that MLS is ignoring. That's a possibility that they could really thrive there. But I don't think that they're ever going to be able to thrive to the level that MLS is going to. And I just may be completely against it. I may be completely wrong in a decade. Who knows where this is?
You may not be wrong, though.
I'm just saying.
The whole point of this, though, and I want to make this clear, in reality, the reason why this is not going to happen anytime soon, this integration, is in reality, and this isn't a bust on MLS, this is just reality. MLS really has no interest. What interest do they have at helping the lower divisions, whether it be NASL or even USL, survive when, in theory, if those two divisions actually implode or fall apart, it doesn't affect MLS whatsoever. And I just, they can start their own reserve league or MLS 2. I mean, what is stopping them from doing that? In fact, if these two models, Division 2 and Division 3, USL and NASL, completely crumble, you know what? It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt them. I mean, there's no benefit for them. Do you see one? I don't see one. And that's why there's no leap from MLS to make this happen anytime soon. Because, you know what? If the USF, the FIFA, the other bigger point between this is it's unlike in England where there's a relationship between all the different divisions and they're all under the umbrella and being, kind of have to follow the same rules set by the FA or here there are no, the rules are different for everybody. They're completely different for there's no, the clubs aren't independent in MLS. So we're not even talking about the same setup. I mean, it's a single entity ownership in MLS. And so there's no incentive for them to help NASL grow and become a vibrant second division. In fact, that's a threat to them. They don't like the idea of that happening. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Maybe there's a reason why USL is more open to this idea, because you look at USL and MLS, and there's a lot of similarities there. You have a majority owner, and that's the one reason why NASL broke away from USL is because NASL wanted to operate it as an owner type group setting, basically, where the owners have the say in the league, rather than a central single entity, I guess you could say, like they say with MLS. You had that single entity. It's MLS is a single entity, and even though the teams are owned by owners, and the owners have a say, especially, I mean, they're in a freaking board and everything, and they have a say in things, but it is a single entity, and they do what's best for the league instead of just trying to develop the club as a whole. USL is very similar, whereas NASL, even though they work together, they are in fact clubs, although despite the fact that NASL is owned by only a handful of owners.
That's right,
yeah. NASL is not too far off from being a single entity, if you really think about it.
Well, it's not too far off. Yeah, I agree. I mean, but, my whole point reading this article, and it was a really interesting read, was, well, to what end? When we're talking about integrating, the two leagues, it depends to what end. If the end is that we want to build better soccer players for the MLS, then I guess integrating would be a great idea. But this is business, and it's not about creating the best soccer players necessarily, because you know what? MLS teams can still go overseas, and they can go down to South America, and they can go to Mexico, and they can go to, Eastern Europe or whatever. They can still find great players and fill, the roster. So I don't think MLS is, they're seeing the MLS reserves as a way to build and develop their best players. They don't necessarily see integrating Division II and Division III as a way to develop better players. But again, the question is that really the end? When I say, but to what end, that's not really the question, is it? I mean, is there another question? Is there another reason to integrate the league? I mean, a lot of people say, well, let's integrate it because eventually we can work towards some sort of baseball model. I don't really want a baseball model. I don't want AAA and AA soccer teams, frankly. I'd like us to start at least considering a more, and listen, people are going to fry me for this, but eventually FIFA's going to ask us to have promotion and relegation. They're going to force us to do this eventually. And they're going to force us to do it when they see a stronger D2 and D3. And they're going to say, listen, your leagues are strong enough. Everybody's doing really well. So, listen, we're going to move towards this PNR. And you know what? MLS has no benefit in seeing that happen. They don't want to see that happen. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, I see benefits for both as far as the integration, leaving the idea of PNR aside, because that's possibly going to happen in the future. Not necessarily.
You don't think that's a guarantee? You don't think?
No, it's not. I'm not saying it's not a guarantee. I'm just saying I don't know what's going to happen.
I can tell you, not only is that a guarantee, I can guarantee you at some point, FIFA's going to say, all right, Canada, you have 8 teams at this point, or whatever, how many teams they have that are strong. It's time for you to form your own league. No more of this North American. The only reason they're letting us get away with this is because they, understand our situation. They're being understanding. How long does that understanding continue? It's not forever, folks. It's not forever.
Okay. My final comment really is that I see benefits for both parties involved. MLS gets to continue keeping their players up sharp and improve upon quality because they get to play more quality games as a whole, compared to the current MLS Reserve League, where some teams play 10 games, not all teams. Some teams never even finish out the league itself. On top of those teams, some of those players were academy players, which is ideal. You want your academy players to step up into the reserves, and then if they excel, then you can look at possibly signing them. But then they also had some where you saw assistant coaches or even employees of the team have to step up and fill spots because the first team saw injuries.
Yeah,
and a lot of the reserve players had to end up coming over and playing for the actual team itself.
Yeah, they were calling kids off the sidelines.
Yeah, and that's just, it's just one of those things that there's a lot of room to improve upon it, and this is one of those places. I mean, if you go out and you sign an additional, like I said beforehand, 10 players, you have a reserve team that's playing 30 games a season, that's 15 at home. Like I said, there's benefits for both playing at home and playing away at a reserve league. It benefits for the MLS teams as well as NASL or USL.